Know that feeling when someone walks into a room and before they even say a single word, the entire temperature of the space just changes.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very palpable shift.
Right, and you can't quite put your finger on it. It's not like their resume is floating above their head in neon lights.
Yeah, but everyone sits up a little straighter.
Exactly. Everyone tunes in.
We constantly try to attribute that feeling to, raw intelligence or maybe a fancy job title or years of technical expertise.
We look for the logical reason.
Right. But the reality of what's happening in that room is actually much more biological. It's deeply rooted in our unconscious processing.
And that palpable shift, that physical presence, is exactly what we're unpacking in today's deep dive. It's Thursday, June 18th, 2026. And as a brief orientation to our space today, this is a practice, not an ideology.
I love that framing.
Yeah, we are looking at something that usually gets brushed off as a mere soft skill emotional intelligence, and we're going to dismantle that idea completely.
Because it really is the engine of leadership.
It is. So to do this, we're pulling from some incredible sources. We have foundational Harvard Business Review pieces, Daniel Goleman's landmark work, Sylvia Ann Hewlett's decade-spanning surveys on executive presence, and the really practical book Own the Room by Amy Jen Su and Muriel Mengen Wilkins.
What's brilliant about looking at all these sources together
Yeah.
is that they paint a very grounded, mechanistic picture of human influence.
Right.
We aren't just talking about abstract theories here. We are looking at the observable, measurable behaviors that dictate how we govern ourselves, and by extension, how we impact a room.
The mission of this deep dive is really to look within. It's to help you evaluate your own self-leadership and cultivate true presence and alignment. But if we are going to claim emotional intelligence is the actual engine of leadership, we kind of have to look at the math behind it first.
We do. And the data from Goleman's research completely flips the traditional corporate script on IQ.
It really does. I mean, Goldman analyzed nearly 200 large global companies.
Which is a massive sample size.
Huge. He was looking for what actually distinguished the star performers from the average ones. And we tend to think the smartest person in the room wins, right?
That's the assumption.
Yeah.
But Goleman found that emotional intelligence proved to be twice as important as technical skills and IQ for outstanding performance.
Twice as important. Wait, really?
Yes, twice.
So all those late nights mastering like supply chain logistics or financial modeling, those just get you a seat at the table.
Precisely. They are threshold capabilities. You need them, but they aren't the differentiator. And the disparity gets even wider the higher up the ladder you go.
Right, because at the executive level, everyone is brilliant.
Exactly. At the very highest levels of leadership, nearly 90% of the difference in profiles between average performers and star performers was attributable to EI factors.
90%. That's almost the entire gap.
It is. Everyone has technical competence at that level.
Mm-hmm.
The true differentiator is almost entirely emotional. It's about discernment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because this is where standard corporate training programs, they completely miss the mark. It comes down to structural biology, doesn't it?
It does. It's a fundamental difference in how our brains process different types of learning. So your analytical skills, your technical know-how, your logic, your ability to code, that all lives in the neocortex.
And the neocortex learns very quickly through concepts.
Right. You can read a book on strategic management, and your neocortex grasps the logic immediately.
And emotional intelligence isn't born there.
No, it's not.
It's born largely in the brain's limbic system, which governs our feelings, our impulses, and our drives. And the limbic system does not learn by reading a manual.
Not at all.
I love this analogy from the sources. It's like trying to learn how to ride a bicycle by reading a physics textbook.
That is the perfect way to visualize it.
Because your neocortex totally understands the gravity, the velocity, the momentum on the page. But your limbic system actually needs to get on the bike. You have to fall off, scrape a knee, and physically feel the balance to understand it.
What's fascinating here is that the limbic system requires the unlearning of old behavioral habits, and then the gradual establishment of new ones.
Which takes time.
So much time. This explains why a 2-day corporate seminar on, say, active listening usually fails.
Right, because they're giving people concepts. They're targeting the neocortex.
Exactly. But to actually change how you react under immense stress, you have to target the limbic system through experiential practice. It takes sincere effort and a willingness to endure a lot of awkward trial and error.
Which brings us to the absolute bedrock of all of this.
Yeah.
If we have to learn through uncomfortable experience, the very first step is looking inward.
Yes, Internal alignment.
The Stanford Business School's Advisory Council was actually asked to name the most important capability for leaders to develop. And the vote was nearly unanimous: self-awareness.
But that internal work is incredibly difficult.
Oh, it's so hard. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's difficult because it requires confronting the friction in our own lives. The research on authentic leadership shows that the most effective leaders constantly test themselves in the real world. They reframe their experiences to understand who they are at their core. They don't just compartmentalize.
Right. The sources have this analogy about integrating your life. They compare it to a house.
The house analogy.
You have a bedroom for your personal life, a study for your professional life, a family room for your family. And the challenge is knocking down the walls to be the same person in every room.
Which sounds lovely in theory.
It does, but let's make that mechanical, because to me, it feels like trying to run different HVAC systems for every single room in the house. If you are blasting the AC in your professional life but running the furnace in your personal life, eventually the central system overloads.
That's a great point. You need one unified climate.
But that unified climate is what Herminia Ibarra's research calls into question with the authenticity paradox. Because tearing down those internal walls, finding that single climate, it doesn't mean just acting however you want at all times.
No, not at all. And she identifies two extreme psychological profiles that fail at this.
Sort of,
On one end, you have the chameleons.
okay, chameleons.
These are people who constantly adjust their thermostat to match whoever they are with. They adapt to manage their public image, but they often end up feeling fake. Or worse, they lose their internal authority entirely.
I can picture that perfectly. That manager who agrees with the CEO in the boardroom, but then goes down to the floor and complains about the CEO to the junior staff.
Yes, they have no internal center of gravity.
Right.
But on the other end of the spectrum, you have the true-to-selfers. These are the people who say, this is who I am, take it or leave it.
They have a very rigid self-concept.
Exactly. When a true-to-selfer who is used to being a very hands-on, gritty individual contributor gets promoted to a high-level executive role, they often refuse to delegate. They think adopting a more removed, strategic style is somehow a violation of their authentic identity.
I have to push back a little on this idea of authenticity, though, because it feels like a trap.
How so?
Well, if I'm supposed to be authentic, doesn't that just give me a free pass to act however I feel in the moment? Like if my team completely drops the ball on a major project and I am stressed out and furious, isn't it authentic for me to show that stress? If I hide my anger, aren't I just being a chameleon?
This raises an important question, and you've hit on the exact trap many leaders fall into.
Yeah.
We really have to separate true authenticity from unfiltered spontaneity.
Okay, what's the difference?
Spontaneity is just voicing your passing feelings of the moment.
Yeah.
If you yell at your team because you are stressed, that is usually driven by self-interest. It's a lack of limbic self-regulation.
It's reactive.
Exactly. True authenticity in a leadership context means expressing emotions that are meaningful and productive for the group. It's about being anchored in your core values. If your core value is developing a resilient team, yelling at them in a moment of panic actually betrays your real values.
So it's the difference between reacting mechanically to a trigger versus responding with intention and responsibility.
Yes, responsibility over reactivity. And to grow without feeling like a fake, Abar suggests we need a playful frame of mind.
A playful frame of mind. I like that.
When you take on a new role, you aren't faking it. You are trying on possible selves. Your identity isn't a fixed point in the past. It's okay to experiment with new behaviors to see what fits the new challenges you face. Authenticity doesn't mean staying stuck in who you used to be.
That ties right into this concept from the sources called tough empathy.
Yes, tough empathy.
It basically means giving people what they need, not necessarily what they want. Let's say you have an employee who is beloved by the team, right? But they're consistently underperforming.
Very common scenario.
The spontaneous or nice thing to do is ignore it, just to avoid conflict. But tough empathy means sitting down and delivering a difficult, honest performance review. You are deeply authentic, and you care fiercely about their growth, which is why you are willing to make the agonizing decision to challenge them.
It's not about being soft.
No, it's about being fundamentally invested in reality.
And that investment in reality, specifically the reality of the people around you, brings us to how we project this internal alignment outward.
Because the inward stuff makes sense, but the outward projection is where I see leaders get incredibly tangled up.
Oh, constantly.
There is this tension between wanting to be liked and needing to be respected. It's the classic Machiavelli question, isn't it? Is it better to be loved or feared?
And behavioral science finally has a definitive answer to Machiavelli.
Do they?
They do. When we judge others, especially leaders, we look for two things: warmth, which encompasses trustworthiness, and strength, which is competence and agency. And researcher Amy Cuddy found that we process warmth first. Always.
Evolutionarily, that tracks perfectly. If I encounter a stranger in the woods, the very first thing I need to know is, what are your intentions toward me? Are you a friend or a foe? That's warmth.
Exactly.
Only after I figured that out do I ask, are you capable of acting on those intentions? Do you have a weapon? That's strength.
That is the exact biological mechanism at play. But in the corporate world, we do the exact opposite.
We lead with strength.
We do. We walk into a high-stakes meeting and immediately try to prove how smart we are, how competent we are.
Yeah.
And leading with strength before establishing trust is a recipe for disaster. It elicits fear or envy.
So if you are highly competent but show zero warmth, you might get temporary compliance, but you will never get genuine engagement.
Never. The statistics from Jack Zenger and Joseph Folkman bear that out completely. They looked at over 51,000 leaders,
Wow.
and they found that if a manager is strongly disliked, meaning they're in the bottom quartile for likability, the chances that they will be considered a good leader in the top quartile of effectiveness are about 1 in 2,000.
1 in 2,000. That is staggering.
It really highlights how essential that connection is.
Because without trust, you essentially create an every employee for himself culture. Fear is a hot emotion. It burns into our memory, it undermines cognitive potential, and people just shut down to protect themselves.
Right.
But here is the biological catch. You can't just fake warmth to hack the system. Your body literally betrays you.
This is where the neuroscience of vulnerability comes in. Specifically, the concept of resonance from Paula Niedenthal. We are wired to read each other's microexpressions incredibly fast.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The sources point out that if you walk into a room and give a fake smile, a smile where your eyes don't crinkle, you're just moving your mouth to try and look friendly, it doesn't just look awkward to the observer.
No, it has a physical effect.
It actually causes the observer's blood pressure to rise.
It's amazing.
Our nervous systems recognize the physical disconnect, and before our conscious brains even register what is happening, our bodies go into a sympathetic nervous system stress response. We reject the fake warmth physiologically.
Because our brains internally echo what others are doing and feeling. So when someone acts inauthentically, it registers as a biological threat.
So how do you find genuine warmth?
Well, effective leaders rely on the chemistry of the happy warrior. They often have a different chemical profile. Lower cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and higher testosterone, which is associated with assertiveness and a willingness to take measured risks.
And that chemical profile usually comes from a heightened sense of internal control. They have done the self-awareness work, so they don't feel easily threatened by a dissenting opinion in a meeting.
Yes, and if you need a biological reset, the research points to somatic alignment, things like power poses or expansive open physical postures. Holding those for just 2 minutes before a high-stakes encounter physically lowers cortisol and raises testosterone.
It helps you project a calm, grounded presence rather than anxious aggression.
Exactly. Prioritizing that genuine warmth is the conduit of influence. If you establish trust first, it shows you are invested in the welfare of the group. Once people believe you have their back, they are incredibly receptive to your strength and your ideas.
So we've established the internal foundation of self-awareness and the outward priority of warmth before strength. But we need to look at how we operationalize this in real time.
Which brings us to the evolution of executive presence. Sylvia Ann Hewlett's surveys measured what traits executives consider most important for presence, and they compared data from 2012 to 2022.
The shift over that decade is profound, isn't it?
Very profound. Historically, gravitas, the weight, seriousness, and influence a leader carries, was defined by confidence, decisiveness, and a commanding posture. In 2012, those dominated.
But by 2022, things changed.
They did. While confidence remains necessary, traits like inclusiveness, respect for others, and a listening-to-learn orientation shot to the top of the rankings.
Yeah.
The definition of gravitas has expanded. It now demands empathy just as much as authority.
To navigate this new landscape, the book Own the Room argues that you need to find your signature voice.
Your signature voice, yes.
This is the balance between your voice for self, which is how you demonstrate your value, your strength, and your boundaries, and your voice for others, which is how you connect, show warmth, and empower the room.
When leaders fail to balance those, They fall into predictable negative defaults.
What do those look like?
Well, if you lean too heavily on your voice for self, you become an aggressive, dominating, driving voice. You steamroll the room.
Right.
But if you lean too heavily on your voice for others out of fear or desire to please, you shrink away. You become a passive, supportive voice.
I love thinking about this like an audio mixing board.
Oh, that's a great visual.
You have these two main sliders. If you slide the voice for self way too high, you overpower the room and get that screeching, aggressive feedback. But if you get intimidated and slide the voice for others all the way up, pulling your own voice down, the track goes completely silent. You disappear.
You lose your internal authority.
Exactly. To have a signature voice, you have to constantly adjust both sliders to match the acoustics of the room you're in.
That is a highly functional way to visualize it.
Yeah.
And if we're managing those mixing board sliders, we need a practical way to do it in real time.
Yeah.
Which is where the ACE framework from Own the Room is incredibly useful.
ACE, assumptions, communication, and energy.
Yes.
Let's break down how to actually use those mechanics. The A is for assumptions. This is about mentally conditioning yourself before you even open the boardroom door.
You have to interrogate your own value proposition.
Why are you in the room? If you are crystal clear on your own value, if you have that internal authority, you build mental confidence. You don't feel the need to overcompensate and dominate the conversation just to prove you belong there.
Checking your assumptions is essentially applied self-awareness.
Right.
It neutralizes the imposter syndrome that usually triggers that aggressive driving voice.
Then we have C for communication.
Instead of just asserting your opinions louder than everyone else, you rely on a specific toolkit. Framing, structured advocacy, and most importantly, the 3 levels of listening.
The 3 levels of listening are the absolute key to managing the voice for others slider. Let's look at what transitioning through those levels actually feels like.
Level 1 is surface listening.
You are making eye contact, you are nodding, you are hearing the words at face value. It's polite but shallow.
Then you move to level 2, issues-based listening. This is where you are cutting through the conversational clutter to track the actual project timeline or the logistical problem being discussed. You are listening for the facts.
But level 3 is the magic one, emotions-based listening. This is where you uncover the true agendas.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Imagine a scenario where a colleague says, I can have that report done by Friday. But as they say it, their voice slightly pitches up, they avoid eye contact, and they shift their weight.
Okay, I can see that.
Level 1 hears the word Friday. Level 2 notes the deadline. But level 3 notices the physical hesitation. Level 3 pauses and says, it sounds like Friday might be putting a lot of pressure on your current bandwidth. Do we need to adjust?
That is exactly how it works in practice.
Yep.
You are reading the motivations behind an issue.
Yeah.
You are listening to what isn't being said.
Right.
That level of attention is how you project genuine warmth and ensure the team feels truly heard and supported.
Which leaves the E in the ACE framework, energy. This goes right back to the biology of the happy warrior. You must maintain a deep, real-time awareness of the physical and emotional energy you are radiating into a space.
Because unmanaged high-octane nervous energy creates friction. It puts the limbic systems of everyone around you on high alert.
But if you can regulate your internal reactivity, if you can manage your breathing, check your assumptions, and project a calm, stable equilibrium, you biologically reassure the room.
You successfully balance your competence with warmth.
Let's actually take a pause right here. We're going to take about 5 or 10 seconds of silence just to let this sink in. Just sit with what we've been discussing about internal authority and energy. Pause.
Okay, notice what came up for you there.
I have a grounded reflection question for you to consider. Where in your own leadership are you perhaps reacting mechanically to triggers rather than responding from a place of internal authority?
That's a beautiful question to sit with.
We really gently invite you to bring this discernment into your lived practice this week, or perhaps bring it into a community dialogue. Because what this entire stack of research proves is that leadership is not a title handed down from a corporate hierarchy.
No, it's not a bullet point on your resume.
It's not a measure of your technical IQ. Leadership is a daily, active practice of self-governance. It is the practice of managing your own internal emotional landscape, your assumptions, your communication style, your physical energy, so that you can positively align and impact the community around you.
You don't own the room by taking up all the oxygen. You own the room by being the most grounded, internally aware, and deeply connected person in it.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. something that builds on everything we've explored today regarding the neocortex and the limbic system.
Oh, this is a fascinating angle.
We are moving incredibly fast into an era where artificial intelligence can handle almost any cognitive, data-driven task.
The machines have perfect IQ.
Exactly. They have all the technical skills, the analytical coding, the neocortex functions completely mastered. So what happens to the definition of a human leader?
Right. If the AI can write the strategy and do the math flawlessly, does the future of human leadership rely 100% on emotional intelligence?
Will the only true leaders left be the ones who have mastered the uniquely human landscape of the limbic system? It's a profound thought experiment.
It really is.
So the next time you walk into a room and you feel that atmospheric temperature shift, remember that it's not their resume you're feeling, it's their presence. Thanks for diving deep with us today.